Okay, I'm ready now then. Am I too loud or is it just me not being used to hearing? Okay. Ready? All right, good. Okay. All right. So welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to see you all this evening. So we're going to jump right into it. Thank you. Thank you. So last week we talked about retirement planning. We talked about really the biggest driver of retirement is going to be a function of your expenses relative to how much you have in guaranteed income sources, such as Social Security and pension income that will cover those expenses. And then from there, you back into how much you need to have saved up for retirement. So I did talk about what I call the GIVE formula, the GIVE formula. Again, that's your guaranteed income versus your expenses. And whatever the difference is, you divide that by 4 or 4% to determine how much you should have to withdraw from your portfolio. We talked about the 5 key risks of retirement, which is longevity, right? So we're living longer than we have historically. That's also a big stress on your returns or at least your investments when it comes to retirement. It's one thing to make it to retirement at 65 or so, right? You want to make it through retirement. Living perhaps another 25 or 30 years can cause a substantial drain on your portfolio. Healthcare costs is a big driver or big risk in retirement. Asset allocation, being properly invested, which we'll discuss today. And then there is withdrawal rate risk, so making sure you're not withdrawing too much, so that way your portfolio will sustain itself throughout your lifetime. And then we talked about inflation, right? We've all experienced that firsthand. We talked about the various ways you can save for retirement. Social Security is going to be a big factor. We talked about saving through your employer retirement plan, IRAs, Roth IRAs, 401ks, et cetera, right? So now we'll talk about kind of what everyone seems to be interested in learning more about, which is investments, right? So we're going to get right into it. So we'll talk about what is a stock, right? Very straightforward. Earn dividends and shares outstanding, right? Then we'll talk about total return, really what constitute that, and what does that actually mean. We'll talk about really buying and selling stocks. I'll give you an example of how that works. We'll talk about a bond, and then we'll talk about portfolio management. And then we'll move into kind of the indices. So every morning or every night you hear about the market being down, or you hear the Dow Jones is down today, right? The question becomes really, what does that number mean? So I'm going to help explain that to you as well, right? So let's talk about it. What is a stock? A stock is basically ownership in a company, right? It is literally your share in a company. So whenever you buy a stock, you're buying equity in that company, right? So when you buy stock, you become a shareholder, a stockholder, et cetera. So as a shareholder, they can include individuals such as ourselves, institutions, mutual funds, big investment firms. Corporations will buy stock in their own company or they will buy stock in other companies. And as a shareholder, you're entitled to voting rights. You do have the ability to make decisions at the corporate level, not at the individual level, but you're entitled to certain rights, boards, you're entitled to inspection of the books and things of that nature, their financial statements, and a dividend. Now, there's actually 2 types of stocks. There's common stock, then there is preferred stock. Common stock is really what you hear about every single day, right? It's really, when you think about a company's capital makeup, right, how their finances are structured, it's your bondholders first. They get paid first if the company goes bankrupt. Then you have your stockholders. Stockholders, you have 2 types, common stock, which is, again, what you see every single day. Then you have preferred stock. Preferred stock almost functions like a bond, and I'll explain that shortly. But that's primarily the difference. So what a preferred stock does, it doesn't fluctuate as much, and it typically pays a fixed rate of interest. So it's similar to a bond, but has some characteristics of a stock, right? So again, stock is basically ownership in a company. So why do corporations issue shares, right? They do it for really several different reasons, but one way is really to raise money to help grow the business. Maybe it's going to use to fund operations, to acquire another business, and quite frankly, it's used to enrich the founders of that company. So for example, are we familiar with IPOs, initial public offerings? Have we heard that term before? Okay. So you may have heard this term, initial public offering, where you may hear something to the effect of, this person became an overnight billionaire. Have we heard things like that? This person. So really what happens is, when you are publicly held, let me go back. So you have several business types, right? You have like a sole proprietorship, partnership, etc., right? So if I'm a sole proprietorship, I'm a barber, for example. It's just me by myself, right? Partnership, me and another barber, we get together, we have a partnership. It's just us two. Then we form a corporation. That's where we say, you know what, we're going to incorporate ourselves. We're going to become a legal entity, and we're going to have shares from everyone here in the church to give us money so that we can grow the business. Does that make sense to you? That's really how it works out from a very simplistic standpoint. So what happens is, once we take that money, not take it, but once we say, okay, you know what, guys, we're going to offer ourselves to the public as you, we each want you to give us, let's say, $100 per person, right? And if it's $1,000, or if it's 1,000 people, that means we get $100,000. That means we can invest in the business, help grow it, and fund it. Does that make sense so far? It's really a way to raise money and grow the business going forward. But at the highest level, really, what happens is initial public offerings are used to enrich shareholders. So here's what will happen. Let's assume me and my buddy, we started a business, again, same barbershop. This time we want to go public, but we want to do it on a massive scale. So what we'll do is we will literally offer 10 million shares to the public at $10 per share, right? So that means we're raising $100 million, right? I'm sorry, $10 million. No. Yeah, 10 million shares times $10 a share, 100 million, right? Now, here's what happens. Because I'm a founding shareholder, I might sell 2 million of my own personal shares, right? So that means I have 2 million shares to sell. I'm going to sell those 2 million at $10, which means I'm going to get 20 million from my own pocket. Does that make sense to you? That's really one of the purposes of going public for the founders. It's used to grow the business, but it's also used to enrich themselves. So they want to cash out. Does that make sense? And then as we see back in 2020, the biggest IPOs that year, Airbnb and DoorDash, right? That's initial public offerings. So now the stock market is open every single day, or Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 4 p.m. And there's really several different exchanges. The major exchange is what's called the New York Stock Exchange, or the NYSE, right? That's the big one in Europe. When you see folks, this is actually it right here, right? That's the New York Stock Exchange. This is where the trades take place. You have what's called the NASDAQ, or the National Association of Dealers Automatic Quotation System. Basically what this is actually an over-the-counter system. Basically, it's all electronic and computer-driven. It's not necessarily anyone working on the exchanges. It's all electronic, computer-based, et cetera. Does that make sense to everyone? So typically what happens is when you buy a stock through a broker, the order goes to the exchange matches that up with someone else who wants to buy it, right? So again, it's a good way for companies to raise capital and provide liquidity. All right, so now when we talk about buying a stock, you have your earnings, dividends, and your shares outstanding, right? Earnings is basically a corporation's profits. It's how much money they make after they've paid their employees, right? They've paid vendors, taxes, et cetera. That's really what profit is. The income minus their expenses, right? Almost similar to what we talked about a few weeks back when we talked about cash flow, right? Very similar in some respects. Then you have dividends. A dividend is a portion of a company's profits that they pay to you as a shareholder, right? That's really what a dividend is, and I'll show you examples how that works shortly. Then you have shares outstanding. That represents the total number of shares that are out there for public trading, right? Here's how this works out. ABC company has 10 million in sales, right? So that's total revenue. They've got costs and expenses of $6 million. How much did they earn last year? How much? Right, 4 million. So that's the profits, right? Now, what they can decide to do is they can say, you know what, we want to pay out a dividend. We're going to pay out a dividend of $2 million. So now what they do is they take the shares outstanding, that's the number of shares they have available for public trading. They divide that by the 2, and your dividend is $2 per share. Does that make sense to you? So for every 1 share you own, you receive a dividend of $2. You have 100 shares, that's $200. You have 1,000 shares, that's $2 in dividends every single year, or however. Typically, dividends are paid on a quarterly basis. So typically what they'll do is, this $2 dividend could be broken up into 4. So they can say, we'll pay you guys 50 cents per quarter, essentially. Does that make sense so far? Right? And then we have what you call earnings per share. This is the amount of earnings on a per share basis. All it really is is the profit, again, the profit or the earnings divided by the number of shares outstanding. So your earnings per share is $4 per share. So if you have a company with a very high level of earnings per share, that's a good thing, right? You want a company that has a high level of earnings per share. Any questions on that? Okay. So now we talk about total return, right? There's really two components. I'm going to give you an example of each one individually, right? It's the amount of money you make over a certain period of time. That time frame could be a year, it could be 2 years, etc., right? But for the sake of brevity, we'll just say it's a year. So again, two components of total returns in terms of how you make money with investments. It's capital appreciation or capital gains, right, which is the increase or decrease in the value of the stock itself, plus a dividend, right? So for example, you buy 100 shares of ABC company at $6 per share, right? That means your total investment so far is 100 times 6 or $600, right? 1 year later, you sell ABC for $10 per share. First question, did you make money or lose money in this one so far? You make money. How much did you make? There we go. So you made $4 per share. How many shares do you own? So that means you made what? $400, right? So that's $400 per share. So now, as you can see here, the question becomes, what is the total return? You take what you've earned, divided by your initial investment, multiply it by 100. You're going to get 67%. Does that make sense to you? And that's how that works out. So if you can get this type of return every year, let me know. I've got some money to give you. Right? So now here's another example of how this works out. So now we have, same example, only this time this company's going to pay $1 per share. So again, very same thing here. You purchase 100 shares of ABC company at $6 per share. ABC pays a dividend of $1. You sell that stock 1 year later for $10 per share. What's your total return? As you can see, capital appreciation or capital gains is 400. Your dividend is 100, right? So your total return is 83%. You see the difference there? This is why a lot of times you'll find some individuals want dividend-paying companies, right? Typically, when you're a dividend-paying company, it's a company that's a more stable company, right? And it can help increase returns over time. In fact, what you'll find is that when most folks retire, they do want dividend-paying companies because they want to have those dividends being paid out. In fact, when you look at it from a retirement planning standpoint, the one thing you will have with some clients is they will have a portfolio and they only live off of the dividends and the interest. In other words, they don't want to dip into principal, right? So if you've got a portfolio that's paying, let's say, dividends and interest of, let's say, 4%, right? Recall from last week, I talked about that 4% withdrawal rate. If you're withdrawing the dividends and interest, you're not touching principal. So your capital is growing over time. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Sure. So here's what happens. So whenever so capital gains tax or tax on the gain is segmented into two time frames. Long-term capital gains is 1 year or longer. If you held the stock for 1 year or more, long-term capital gains. If you held the stock for 1 year and less, that's short-term capital gains. The difference is short-term capital gains can be taxed as high as 20% or 15%, in some cases 5%, depending upon your circumstances. But if it's taxed as short-term capital gains, then it's taxed at ordinary income rates. So if you're in a very high tax bracket, you're going to pay whatever that rate is. And also, yes, since you're talking about it, if you have investment losses, they actually are income. You get a deduction for the investments you lose, right? Again, if you sold the investment. So there's a difference between, say, a realized capital gains and an unrealized, right? So realized means you actually sold the stock. If you hold it, it's unrealized. So if you sell the stock at a loss, you can deduct up to $3,000 against your income. Does that make sense to you? Anything above and beyond that can be carried forward indefinitely. So there's situations where I'll have clients, so typically what happens is whenever we bring on a new client, they may have a certain portfolio that we don't agree with, or the portfolio doesn't match what we would recommend. So we have to oftentimes sell a client's portfolio off so we can get it to where we want it to be. Typically what happens is a client may have some capital gains embedded. And if a client sells off a lot of stock in 1 year, they can get a huge capital gains bill. So what we will ask that client is, do you have any unrealized or do you have any losses that we can use to offset some of these gains, right? And that's really a strategy that you can use going forward. And I'm jumping ahead here, but even when you have those types of investments, you can do what's called tax loss harvesting, which means at the end of the year, you just sell off investments just for the tax losses and you buy them back later on. All right, so let's talk about a bond, right? And I think we touched on this last week. But a bond is basically a loan to a company or the government, right? Corporations issue bonds, U.S. government or U.S. treasuries, states, local governments, et cetera, and a certificate deposit is almost a loan in some respects, right? The difference is that with a bond, the price doesn't fluctuate as much as a stock. So if you buy a bond, let's say you buy a bond, which means you're making a loan to, let's say, Apple. You buy a bond from Apple, which means you're lending them $1,000. Apple says, you know what? If you lend me this $1,000 for 10 years, I'm going to pay you 5% interest every year for the next 10 years, right? And then at the end of that 10-year time frame, you'll get your principal back. Plus the interest will be paid along the way. That's really what a bond is and how it works. So every week, the U.S. government comes out and issues billions of dollars in treasury notes or treasury bonds every single month, or every week, actually. And even with local governments, right? When we hit the interstate, we're paying tolls. Oftentimes, that money goes to pay off some of the bond obligations. School districts, hospitals, those municipalities, they issue bonds to fund operations or to expand new operations. Even when you look at stadiums, that's going to be municipal debt. Really, the difference with a corporate bond is taxable. So the interest that you pay on this becomes taxable. Municipal bonds, what you call tax-free bonds, are tax-free. So if you're in a high tax bracket, you buy muni bonds. Yes? No, U.S. savings bonds are separate. So the difference with these types of bonds here, they are publicly traded. U.S. savings bonds are just held directly with the Treasury. You can't actually trade them. You have to hold them until maturity. Now, the difference with these types of bonds, corporate bonds, treasuries, et cetera, they can be sold throughout the day. It's not like you have to hold it until it matures. You can buy and sell it every single day. In fact, the U.S. Treasury market is the largest market in the world. It's the most liquid market we have out there. All right? So what happens is you have maturities, right? In other words, you have a time frame in which you have to wait to get your money back. It can be 5, 10, 15 years. The longer the maturity, the higher the interest rate. Does that make sense to you? It's almost like borrowing money from a family. If I pay you back next week, that's fine. But if you want to pay me back a year from now, there's a risk you might not pay me back. So I need to charge you more for the risk of not paying me back. Does that make sense to you? Same thing with corporations. And I'm sure you've heard this, that there's an inverse relationship between bond prices and interest rates. Have we heard that before? So what happens is as interest rates move up, bond prices go down. As interest rates go down, bond prices go up. Right? So right now, rates have gone up. Bond prices, last year they went down considerably. That's the inverse relationship between bond prices and interest rates. So this is an example of Apple, right? So as you can see here, can we all see this clearly? All right. So we see here, Apple symbol is AAPL, right? The stock symbol, right? Every company has a stock symbol or a 3 or 4 letter abbreviation that identifies the company, right? Current price, $192.75 per share. It's up 81 cents today, or 0.42%. This is after hours. This is after 4 p.m., right? So if you buy 1 share, how much is 1 share going to cost you? How much would 10 shares cost you? 19, right. 1900, 270, 275, right? Yesterday's close, 191. This is what you call the day range, right? This is the low price for the day and the high price for the day. 52-week range. This is the highest the stock is traded at over the year, and the lowest is traded. So over the past year, it's been as low as 124. It's been as high as 198. Does that make sense? The volume represents the number of shares that's actually traded in that day here. So this right here, 44 million shares were traded today. That's a lot of liquidity within the stock itself. And the average volume, so it's 57 million shares have been traded on average. So this is a below average day. It's summertime. Folks are vacationing, right? So typically activity declines during the summertime. Here is what we just talked about this actually. EPS, or earnings per share, right? 589. Earnings date, this is when earnings come out, August 3rd. This is the dividend, 96 cents or 0.5%. So it's a very small dividend. Market cap, $3 trillion, right? That's the price of the stock. It's not showing it here, multiplied by the number of shares outstanding. That gives you the market cap, $3 trillion. So Apple's actually the largest company globally. NVIDIA, a few others. Any questions on that? All right. This is another one. This is Verizon. As you can see here, the symbol is VZ, right? $33.98 per share, up 10 cents or 0.3% per share. Market cap, again, $142 billion. So you see how much larger Apple is relative to Verizon. Verizon's been around much longer, right? It's almost 20 times the size of Verizon. How crazy is that, right? Dividends, look at that one. You see that? What do you guys see there? Yeah, that's a big one, right? A 7.7% dividend yield is ridiculous. So this is where a lot of retirees will actually buy this particular stock for its dividend, right? So also when you look at the dividend, it actually sometimes cushions a decline. So for example, if a stock declines, let's say 10%, you still hold it, you receive a dividend, 7.7, you're only down about 2.3%. Does that make sense to you? If it's down 10%, you're getting a dividend of 7.7%, you're only down 2.3. So a dividend actually helps cushion a decline. Any questions on that one? All right. You guys are kind of quiet today. I'm used to a bunch of questions. Okay, all right. I'm used to getting Mother Dorothy asking me. Yeah, I'm used to Mother Dorothy asking for a friend. So.
I know, Tom. We need to get these people up. Right. Y'all got questions? Come on, start talking. Shoot.
Right. So we talk about why do corporations issue bonds? For the very same reason they issue stock. It's a method of raising capital, right, to expand the business, enhance operations, or to acquire another company. Oftentimes, companies will issue stocks or bonds to buy another business. Do that very often. And it's a way where they don't give up ownership. Have you ever seen Shark Tank? You ever watched that? So folks come on the Shark Tank and they say, well, listen, I've got a business. Okay, what's your business do? We sell refrigerators. Okay, so what's so special about your business? Oh, it does this, it does that. Well, how much do you want? Well, I want a 10% stake for $100,000, right? So if you want $100,000 for 10% of your business, you tell me your business is worth $1 million, right? You'll notice that they haggle on the percentage because they don't want to give up ownership, right? People hate giving up ownership. So to get around that, you simply say, you know what? We'll just borrow some money from you instead. I'll keep the equity, I'll keep ownership, I'll just borrow from you instead and pay you back over time. Right? That's really why companies will do that. The only challenge comes in is if there's a bankruptcy, then the bondholders get paid first. Stockholders get wiped out typically. Same thing. So J&J issues $500 million, 30 years at 4.9%. And this was a couple years ago when rates were much lower. But that's typically how that works out. Now, very similar to how you and I have a credit score, corporations have a credit score. It's called a credit rating. They're rated as high as AAA all the way down to D. anything below what's called a triple B is considered junk bond or high yield, meaning it's risky. So now I'm going to put together stocks and bonds, and I talked about this last time I was here. Stocks and bonds makes asset allocation, right? The more you have in stocks, you're more aggressive. The less you have in stocks, that means you're not as aggressive. So here are some asset allocation returns, right? Left-hand side, you'll see 20% stocks, 80% bonds. Again, it's the mixture of your investments spread between stocks, bonds, and cash, right? Average return for a portfolio with 20% stocks, 80% bonds, average has been 7.1%, right? Best year, 40.7% upwards. That was 82, right? Worst year, down 10%. I'm going to skip this portion here. So now we go from top to bottom, 50% stocks, 50% bonds. So now we're taking on more risk because we have more stocks in our portfolio. Average return, 8.6%. You see the difference there? Right? Best year, 33%. Worst year, down 22, as opposed to worst year being down 10. You see that? So higher rates of return, but with higher risk as well. The higher probability of losing money. On the right-hand side, we have 70% stocks. So you see the difference there? Average return, 9.4%. Best year, 41.1. Worst year, down 30. Then we go to 100% stocks. So again, average rate of return, 10.2%. Best year, 54. Worst, 43, etc. So you see how the more you add stocks to your portfolio, the higher the return, but the higher the potential loss, right? So as always, the question becomes, you should have a portfolio that's representative of your preferences towards risk, your time frame, and your ultimate goal for that money, right?
That's the question that I was asking you last week. So how do you explain it now?
Okay. Okay. Good. Where do you think you fall? You personally?
I'm not a visual sticker.
Okay. You black? You black? Go ahead. That's black people. Go ahead. That's how we go ahead.
Tell me who's not the gambler. No, okay, there we go. No, I'm not a gambler. But I want a higher return.
Right.
So, but the catch is higher return, higher risk.
Yes.
So, I would be more in the, somewhere around the middle, like 50, no.
I'm saying no for you.
No for me.
Yes. You're too young. Way too young. Way too young.
Wait.
You need to be, yes, you need to be here.
Okay.
At the very least.
Okay.
Me personally, I'm 100% stocks.
Okay.
I'm 43. Yeah. I'm 43. Yeah.
Okay.
But think, I'm 43. When am I really going to touch my money?
Okay.
When I'm 65, 60, that's 23,
Right.
24 years from now. Like, think about it. And once I get older, I approach retirement, then I'll think about maybe dialing it back some. So here's the thing. I don't own, he actually owns some individual stocks, my son. So he has a couple. I only buy stocks in his account, and that's really, I do that to teach him. I don't buy stocks unless I feel like I can make some good money because it takes too much time for me to buy them. I usually buy mutual funds and ETFs. Does that make sense to you? Because once you start buying individual stocks, you have to watch it.
Right.
Jules took my class. You have to buy it. It takes a lot of management. And I've seen, I'll have individuals that I know personally, 50 stocks. Okay, how did you get all these stocks? They can't tell me. So that means you're not really putting as much time in your portfolio as you should because you have so many different stocks. Does that make sense to you?
So I'm 36. I'll be 37 in October. I should be at 70% stocks, 30%.
80. You 36, 80%.
80.
Yes. You TSP, right?
What?
You not TSP? You don't work for the government?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. Somebody else. Okay.
I'm the school district.
Even better. 180%. I'm
Okay.
telling you. 36, 80%.
Okay.
Yes.
At what age should you start dialing it back?
So I'm going to say for me personally, I'm probably not going to start dialing it back until I'm in my late 50s, early 60s. Me personally. Now, that's because I don't plan on retiring until I'm in my 60s. If you plan to retire sooner, then you take steps sooner to start dialing back some of the risk. Does that make sense to you?
So we shouldn't, because I remember you said the older you get, typically the more conservative you get.
Yes.
So don't you want to start getting conservative before you're about to retire?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. So, for example, now recall I said earlier, though, if right now I'm 100% stocks, when I retire, I might get to 70%. Right? Why? Because I might live another 30 years. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, that makes sense. But what if you're going to retire at 65
Okay.
and then 64 is one of the bad years? Like, shouldn't you have been conservative before then, or we're not worried about that? Like, I don't want to go broke. I don't want to have the worst year and now 100% are in stocks and I wanted to retire.
Yes. So as you get, so let's assume you're 60. Let's assume you're 60 right now. You want to retire in 5 years, right? We will then say, okay, well now we need to start taking steps to become more conservative. Does that make sense to you? So it's a gradual process. It's okay. So let's start dialing back some of the equity we have here. Yes.
The risk. Okay. I don't really need this, but so the age that someone is, their stock percentage should reflect that. Like it should match, kind of, sort of.
Yes.
Or,
go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Right. The younger you are, yes, you have way more time ahead of you.
Right.
Right. So I think I spoke a few weeks back where I had one of my good friends, 40 years of age, everything in a stable value fund. Mm-hmm. No. You can do better than that. So
right.
you need to have way more in stocks than you currently have.
Okay.
Your age does play a part.
Okay.
Now, I will say with our community, to your point, if you start asking black people about their investments, Lord Jesus, I don't want no risk.
I can't.
That's how we.
Right.
You see how that's how we are. Yeah. See.
I completely understand the concept.
Right.
Because the younger you are, the more time you have to recover from the loss.
Right.
I totally get that. You.
Right.
I'm not guaranteed always moving up. I don't want to take the loss.
Okay.
That part.
Thank you.
Right.
And
Okay.
I will keep the slow growth. Because then my thought process is that, and my hope is that I will intentionally save more aggressively so that I can be prepared for my retirement.
Okay. Now, how old are you? How old are you?
I'm 33.
Jules, where you at?
Come on, brother. 33. Here, I will tell you first. Okay, let me give you a real life example. Now,
If I had money to, I would probably feel more comfortable if I had more money to waste. Because that's the only way I can
okay,
see myself taking that kind of risk.
okay,
But because I'm informed of this, I'm not that much of a risk taker.
Okay.
I've never been, and I won't be. There's nothing that could sway me. I don't care how much information I have. I'm not going to be persuaded to ever
Okay.
invest in that manner unless I really was okay with losing money. I have to be okay with losing money
Okay.
to take that kind of risk.
okay. Say it again. Here we go. Yep. Right. You had a question?
So, and what I'm about to say, don't nobody like trying to figure out now. So, I'm basically starting life over again.
Okay.
And it's just me and my daughter. And basically, I'm starting life all over again.
Okay.
And I'm starting, with just me and my daughter now.
Okay.
And I'm trying to figure out, getting this information, what is like a good place to start, and like how do you have your sons set up?
That's what Jules asked me about that. So it's really places like TD Ameritrade, Betterment, are good places to start. Right? It really, anytime you talk about a Fidelity, Vanguard, those are all good places to start. Right? They all serve the same function. Fidelity, Vanguard, Schwab, which is now TD, or TD Ameritrade, which is now Schwab, Betterment, etc. All those are good places to start. Any other questions on this portion of investments?
I don't have a question, but I'm going to just tell y'all this. Somebody that worked at Vanguard for 11 years, and I dealt with multi-million-dollar stock portfolios. I managed them. They were very diversified in their portfolio, meaning that just because of your age does not mean that you do not have to be aggressive at this moment, but you want to be aggressive. Just like we had the crash in 2008, it's going to come back.
Right.
And when it comes back, even though you'll be at a lower amount, but when it comes back, even if your portfolio drops, when it comes back, you're going to triple your money. I'll just tell you that.
Right.
So be aggressive.
Right. No, but I do say that specifically with us within Black American society, I have noticed that we are very conservative in how we invest our money across the board, right? Some people are saying, hey, you know what, I'm comfortable with that. But I would say it behooves us to put more money to work long term, right? I actually had a client. This was going back. I'm 40. This was maybe 15 years ago. I was at Fidelity. He was a brother too. He literally put everything in a stable value fund. It was a money market stable value fund for 30 years, and he had like 300,000. That's not a bad number, but it could have been triple that had he invested the money. Right? So that's what I'm saying, especially when you look at us as a collective, right? Us as a people collectively, we are well behind the 8 ball in terms of our finances. Any other questions? I think this might actually be it for, we're not done. So asset allocation, right? So as always, I talked about this last time, right? Once you determine the appropriate level of stocks to bonds, then we talk about the investment selection portion, right? So now we talk about, again, asset class, equities, which is stocks, fixed income bonds, cash equivalents, that's basically cash. Alternatives, those are investments that don't necessarily correlate to the stock and bond market, right? Then we have diversification. So now we talk about equity or stock diversification. So you diversify between value and growth. Value is a style of investing. What value says is we look for stocks that are undervalued relative to either its peers or the overall market, and we buy those stocks, right? Growth investing looks at stocks that have above average growth rates. We looked during the pandemic, it was Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix. They have above average growth rates. Those were called the FANG stocks. In fact, this year alone, growth stocks have done better than value stocks, right? So that's a style play. Then we have market cap. So earlier I showed you how Apple was worth $3 trillion, right? So now you have different size companies, right, that perform differently in different environments. You have small caps, which are typically very small. This number moves a lot. It could be $1 billion and less in market cap. Mid cap is any company with a market value between 1 and 10 billion. Again, that number changes, and really large cap is anything above 10 billion. But again, that number will change. You can be a $1 trillion company. That's a large cap. The difference is they all perform differently in different environments. Again, you also have domestic stocks, right? So US-based companies and international companies. Sectors, REITs, different industries. There's actually 11 sectors within the investment universe. And then there are 66 different industries that you can invest in. And that's how you would diversify between stocks. Bond or fixed income, very same thing. Short term, intermediate, which is typically 1 to 10. and long-term is 10 years or more. The difference is the longer, I talked about this earlier, the longer that bond has until maturity, the more volatile it will be because it has a longer time before repayment. Investment grade, that's corporate bonds. High yield, that's basically a company that has a high risk of default. International, again, taxable, tax exempt, we talked about that. And that's how you diversify between stocks and bonds. The investment selection. So now here's where we get a little more granular. The question becomes, are we going to use individual stocks, individual bonds, mutual funds, or ETFs? And we haven't even talked about these two yet. We'll talk about those some other day, next week sometime, right? But this is really how you would actually build a portfolio, right? So as I was saying before, my portfolio is basically mutual funds and ETFs. Now, if I buy a stock, it's something I read about, and I'll buy maybe one stock at a time. But my portfolio was not 20 different stocks. It's all mutual funds and ETFs because I just don't have the time to research every single company I own. Right? So once that's done, right, and this is where mutual funds come in, then we talk about rebalancing. So rebalancing is a risk control mechanism, right? So what's your name, brother? Yusef? Okay. So let's suppose I convince Yusef to go 50% stocks, 50% bonds. Right? Okay, so let's go with that, right? Now Yusef, you know what, Brother Donna? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna trust God, right? Right? He said God spoke to me last night. He said he want me to be 50 stocks, right? So here's what happens though. What happens is when you leave a portfolio as is, it will grow out of whack on its own because the markets will do what they do. So for example, what happened is, let's assume he was 50% stocks, 50% bonds. The stock market does well. So next year, the stock market goes up 10%, bonds don't do anything. So now his 50% stock grows to 60%. Does that make sense to you now? Now the bonds account for 40%. So what's happening is over time, he's becoming more aggressive. But he's saying, hey, you know what? I don't want that. So what we do is we rebalance every single year or multiple times throughout the year. So when this stock grows out of whack, we take 10% from here, we bring it back, sell 10% from the stocks, put it back with the bonds. That brings it back to 50% stocks, 50% bonds. That's rebalancing. That's how you control risk in your portfolio. Does that make sense? Yes. And that's a key mechanism of portfolio management.
That's manually done.
You said manual or annually?
Manually.
Yeah, it's
How often should that be done?
so this should be done at least once a year, but depending upon market conditions, it could happen more often than that. So that's rebalancing. All right, what time? So I got one more. How much time do we have? I have one more slide I want to share, and then I think we'll close out. This one, you saying? I want to close out of the intro to this one here and show this one. I want to show this one. Okay. Sure. Yes. He has an UTMA account. Remember I talked about that last week, an UTMA account. Yeah. No, it is. So what I do is I have my social security number attached to it and his. Yeah. Go ahead. Let me clarify. You're referring to your girlfriend? No. Your ex-wife. Okay. Let me clarify. You're asking about an account type. Let me clarify the question.
Yeah, like you guys just said, like your name is on his account, on his social security number.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying so. My situation would be like the same thing with yours. Would her mother be able to give?
No, not if it's in your name. No. She can't do that. It's your account. It's almost like a bank account. Nobody can touch that. Yeah. Yeah.
All minors have to be attached to an adult.
Right.
Like, with the same bank account. You know the bank account for minor, but they have to be attached to an adult.
Right.
So whoever that adult is actually the owner until that minor becomes a
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, she can't touch it. She can't touch it. But yeah, but I do think, so if you, like I said, utmost accounts are good ways to really set kids up to start saving for your kid, but also to help them learn about investments, right? So I've taken him and my kids through investment courses, and I actually will have them buy stocks companies that they either ask me about. Do you recall any of the stocks you bought, Boobop, or no? You don't recall anyone? Not a single one? All right. What about last year when we went to the King of Prussia Mall? And you asked me to go into a store. You recall? You don't recall what company you bought? Who? It was the other one. Who? Right. So so we were in King of Prussia Mall. He says, Dad, can we go to the Louis Vuitton store? I said, for what? Remember that? Yeah, no, for what? Buy something. No, sir. What we can do is take you home and show you how to buy a share of your Louis Vuitton. Right? So what we did was we went home, I showed him how to research it, and we bought it. I think he bought it 1 or 2 shares? Yeah, he bought 1 or 2 shares. Yeah, yep. Bought it last year. So that's why I do that. That's why I do that.
question. Probably nothing to do with this. No, this is because we're talking about minors, setting them up for success. One of the things that our counterparts do often is add them as co-owners on their credit card.
Yes.
I forget what age that they're able to do that, so that they are able to, so that by the time they're 18, they have perfect credit.
Yes.
They don't need you to co-sign for anything. I think that for those that have children or anticipate to have children, I think that would be very valuable for them to know and understand so that they don't.
Praise the Lord, everybody. So my question was in regards to setting our minor children up for success credit-wise, that our counterparts often will
Yes.
add them to credit cards, to credit accounts at an early age, I believe some as early as 14 or 16, so that by the time that they turn 18, they have perfect credit with perfect payment history, a high credit score, and then they literally don't need their parents to co-sign for anything for them, but then they leave from home.
Yes. So very good point. So typically to your point, what I guess the dominant society does is they will add their children to their credit cards as an authorized user, right? And they will just literally typically they'll just pay off the balance every month, or they'll just make sure that it's a low utilization rate. But what happens is over time, that child will inherit the account history of the credit card and develop their own credit score. Does that make sense to you? So I'm gonna show you something actually. Can you, brother Jules, can you help me out here? I want to show something right quickly. Oh, I think I did it. You know what? Yeah. Oh, I tried to send. I'm trying to. It says I must have declined it. I open in photos. Should I do that or just save and download? Oh, I don't want to. Okay. Is that? Oh, it's only showing the other one. I'm gonna go back though. Thanks. It's not showing.
Yeah, I don't think you send the whatever other one it was.
What?
Was it just this one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Maybe I can attach it to a file,
Hello.
or I'll
Oh,
just
it's on.
attach it to
So I was saying that there are minor accounts that you can use at this time with your kids, where we can take money and put it into their account. Greenlight being one of them, where you can show them how to invest for themselves while they're getting their own as the guardian of the account. So I have my son set up for his account. I'm the guardian, and then he can go in there and put his own money in, invest it in stocks if he wishes to do so. They showed him all of the high holding companies. It's called the Greenlight card. Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, I'll share it. Yep, you could do that, and you be the guardian. You get to put the money into the account if they want to do it themselves. This is the way how they learn how. Oh, and it also gives them budget planning tools. They learn how to budget their money, what to expend. It gives them all the percentages, and then they'll see what they spend their money on. So I think it's amazing.
So to your point, so I'm sharing this. This is not my information, but I have three sons. I have a 22 and 18, and this little guy here. So my 18-year-old, he's at Penn State now. I added him to my credit card when he was 16. I pulled his credit report 2 weeks ago. So he's got 14 years worth of history, but this is his credit score here. And he's 18, right? So very good point. So even now let's be candid. Not all of us have good credit, right? So if you have a young child, your credit score isn't strong. What you could do is open up a secure line of credit for maybe a couple $100, buy something with it, or maybe a recurring subscription, just pay it off each month. That way he or she will have superior credit by the time they're 18. Because quite frankly, this is really, we don't really, we're not taught this a lot, right? I was 18, and I'm gonna, guess what my mother and folks wanted to do? Hey, can I get a car in your name? Like we've all done that. We've done that. Right. 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 Yes. Sure.
Okay, so my question is, if your parents add you to the credit card as an authorized user, and you said that you inherit that credit profile,
yes,
and they take you off. So I'm actually going through something like that. My father just added me to about 3 of his about a year ago.
Yeah.
All for a play so I can try to get an FHA loan.
Yeah.
But what if he takes me off? Now, you said that I inherit that profile, but does the points go back down?
No, so if he takes you off, that I'm not really sure of.
Okay.
But if you had done it, you would have had a credit history.
Okay.
Right? So however long he's held that card, if he's held it 20 years, you're going to have literally 20 years worth of history now.
Okay. All right, cool.
Because my son has 14 years worth of history. And I'm like, how did you get 14 years? And I had to think, oh, this is when you opened the card 14 years ago. Right? So that's a very good point. And again, that's how we can set our children up for success long term.
To answer that question, it's very similar to closing an account. You do lose that information. So it is ideal that once you are in the state that you're in, you get to the point where you're trying to get to, if you're going to do whatever you can do,
So unless things have changed in the credit realm, so once you're added, you gain that information, that portfolio, that history. But the same way that if you were to close an account, you lose, it stops. And if you're removed from an account, you lose that information. So whatever you've gained throughout that process, you keep, but it also states that you don't have it anymore. So if you're going to if you're trying to build your credit to get to a certain state to obtain something, that's great, and you obtain it, but then remember that you will lose that information once you're removed from those accounts, which may potentially cause a negative impact to your credit. Correct.
I'll go back to the. All right, so here we go. So I'll just. How do I, I'm having issues with this laptop here. Oh, here we go. I got it. Here we go. I'm good. All right. So let's talk about the indexes, right? And again, we're just about done here, but I wanted to cover this portion here. So we'll talk about the indices. So an index is basically a basket of stocks. That's really what an index is. And they put together these indexes to measure the market's movements, up, down, sideways, etc. Right? So we're going to talk about a bull market, bear market. We'll talk about the Dow Jones, S&P, NASDAQ, and the 10-year Treasury note. So a bull market, basically it's when the stock rises 20% from its most recent high. Right? So anything that's 20% or higher is considered a bull market. Right? If a stock drops 20%, that's considered a bear market. So again, 20% upwards, bull market, 20% down, bear market. A correction is typically a 10% decline or more, but no greater than 20% from a market's most recent high. So sometimes we'll have a market that will correct, it'll drop, say, 15%. Folks will assume we're in a bear market, but we didn't hit the technical definition of 20%, so it's a correction. And then it typically goes back up. So that's called a correction. That typically does happen. And corrections are actually healthy for the markets. So, oh yeah, I know, right? Yeah, bull and bear market, yep.
What is the time frame of that
Oh, they're on Facebook? I didn't realize we were on Facebook. Okay. I'm sorry? Okay.
My question is, what is the time frame in which this is measured?
There is no time frame.
So from whenever, because you kept saying recent high, so what?
Okay, yeah, so let's assume last week the market was at 35,000. Literally, not that it has ever happened unless it's extreme cases, but if it drops, let's say, 7,000 points over the next 6 weeks, that's a bear market. If it drops 7,000 points in the next 18 weeks, that's a bear market. So this is the Dow Jones Industrial Average, right? It is the oldest index, and it's used to measure the market's returns. What it really is, it's an index made up of 30 different stocks, put together all in one, add up all the stock prices together of all 30 stocks, and they divide it out by 0.125%. That's really how you get to this 35,227 number, right? Again, you take 30 stocks, add them all together by their prices, divide them out, you'll get this number here. And as you can see, total components, 30. I think this index has been around since 1896, I believe. Again, this is basically 30 stocks. So as you can see here, this is as of Friday, actually. We'll see here, year-to-date return, 6.2%. Last 12 months, up 10.43%. This is a one-year chart of the markets itself. And this is really, again, so when you hear about this, the market was up, it was down. They're going to look at the Dow Jones to really get a sense of where we are. It's a popular measure, but it's the most narrowest measure. And most investment professionals don't use it when we talk about tracking their portfolio, right? It's just used more because it's been around so long. The broadest measure, not the broadest measure, but one of the more popular measures is what's called the S&P 500 index, right? So how many stocks do you think are made up in the S&P 500? Right, 500. So it's 500 of the most widely held stocks. And this is not a price where they take the market cap of each company, right? Divided by a certain divisor with its market cap, and we get this number here, 4536. And what you'll find is that the bulk of the returns, because it's based on its market cap, companies like Apple, Amazon, Google, Alphabet, etc., they make up a good chunk of the returns for the S&P 500, right? So you'll see here, It's actually 503 holdings, but usually there's like some companies will have a dual class, like Amazon, Google rather, will have a dual class or 2 class shares. So it's 503 holdings, but it's really 500 companies. As you can see here, 18.5% up year to date. Last 12 months, 14. So when you say the S&P 500 is up today, they're referring to this index here. Huh? You should. You got time. I need somebody to give me a scripture I can give the brothers to get them to put some money to work. Huh? So we have the NASDAQ. So what you'll see here, right? The NASDAQ, the National Association of Automated Dealers, Quotations, etc., right? This is basically on the NASDAQ, the over-the-counter exchange. It's all the stocks in this particular index, over 3,500 stocks. Now what you'll find is that the way it used to be was companies who couldn't list on the New York Stock Exchange would list here, right? This is why you'll find this is mostly made up of technology stock. A large majority of this is made up of tech stocks. Look at the returns year to date. 34%. Brother Yusef.
I'm looking at this top number. I see a lot of red.
What do you see? Yeah, that's today. That was Friday. This was year to date, though.
I'm not convinced anymore.
Okay. So year to date, 34%. This is actually this is ridiculous. Yeah, 34%. Yeah, this is definitely a bull market, right? So that's the overall index. Those are your 3 major indexes. There literally are thousands of indexes that measure every corner of the market. You have international indexes, sector indexes, etc. And we're just about done here. This is the 10-year Treasury note. So what this represents, so each week the U.S. government comes out. Do you have internet access on your okay. So each week the U.S. government comes out and they literally issue billions of dollars of debt every week. So they typically they can borrow money for 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, etc., all the way up to 30 years. This is what's called the 10-year Treasury, which means it's the 10-year time frame for the U.S. Treasury. It's the most popular interest rate within the markets because this is kind of what drives everything, right? So everything is based off of the 10-year Treasury. So when mortgage rates go up, you're going to see this go up first, right? Right now, the Fed is aggressively increasing interest rates, and they're doing so to get this number higher, right? So if you look at where we were, I should have put a longer chart. But typically what you'll find is this number was low a couple years ago, less than 1%. Now we're at 3.8%. So what happens is this will increase the cost. As this goes up, this means the cost of borrowing goes up, mortgage rates, etc. If it goes down, cost of borrowing goes down. I want to show you guys one more thing, and then we're just about done here. Trying to get to the U.S. That clock. Can I get to? I want to share it on. How do I maximize it? Oh, okay, you got it. Oh, Here we go. Oh. So this is, have you ever seen a U.S. debt clock? No. So this is the amount of money the U.S. government currently owes. You see that number is constantly moving? $32.6 trillion. Right? Federal spending, 6.2 trillion. Huh? Yes, it's a website, yep. Budget deficit, 1.5 trillion. Debt per citizen, 97,000 per citizen. Debt per taxpayer, it means adults basically, 253. So this number is constantly growing. So this is the national debt. This is also the U.S. Treasury market. It's the most liquid market globally. So it's heavily traded, buying in and out every single day. Large corporations will park their money here in U.S. Treasuries because it's fully liquid.
Is that
24
24 hours?
hours, yep. This number is real time. This number is real time number. See how much we spend on wars? Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, etc. Now, here's what happens though. This really, so we're at a point now where our debt is greater than our GDP. Right now, GDP, gross domestic product, is about 27 trillion, 30 trillion, give or take. We're basically above 100% debt to GDP. That typically, when you see, typically speaking, when you see corporations or countries with that level of debt, they typically have a slowdown long term. But the biggest issue is the interest on the debt. That's the biggest issue, is can we effectively service our cost of borrowing? Right now, yes, $643.6 billion, yes, as of right now. But over time, if we don't get a handle on things, we probably would see some issues long term. But I just wanted you guys to see that, just so you get a sense of how much money is being. Sure.
I don't have a question. Oh, okay. Praise the Lord. What do the colors represent? Like you see the red, the green.
Oh yeah, negative.
Okay.
Positive. So this is how much we're bringing in tax revenue, 4.7 trillion, right? Look how much we're spending. 6.2 trillion. Deficit. See? Actually, our gross domestic products is 26 trillion. I stand corrected. So yeah, so as you can see, that's the debt clock. Huh? I know they're having a field day. They're having a field day. So that's pretty much it for me. Any other questions? Sure.
Okay, so what I'm about to ask you might be completely made up, but I just want to know if it is a thing. Mm-hmm. And it feels like it might be a thing. Am I able to take money that's in my 401k, not take it out of my 401k, but use that money to invest in stocks? Like, is that a thing?
So I hear what you're saying. So it depends on your 401k's plan. Sometimes they will have what's called a self-directed option, which allows you to establish a brokerage account within your 401k and start buying individual stocks. Other than that, you can't pull it out and place it elsewhere without paying taxes.
Okay, how do I invest in stocks and bonds without using my money? Like money out of, because pulling money out of your checking account to buy a stock that might lose money doesn't sound appealing at all.
Yeah. Right.
Fidelity, it could be anybody. So a lot of them will allow you to, you may get already placed in a target fund. You can choose not to be in a target fund. You can choose to be in all in S&P. You can choose to be all in bonds. So you have to find out what you have and where it's placed, and they will allow you sometimes to move it within the 401k unit, and there are options for you to choose from. But that comes with also knowing that there are different price points, like there are different charges and fees
Okay, let's say that's not a thing. Is there also ways to invest in stocks without, like, using my money?
Yeah, but you still need your own money though. Yeah.
So if I want a stock, I just have to take the money out of my checking account that I work for?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I would like to know where that's even possible.
Don, I'm gonna hold on one second, man. This is when I get into it. Hold on. So on a money market account, I guess the best money market account, Don, is probably the Apple Goldman Sachs card, the Apple Goldman Sachs one that they have.
How much? I don't know how much.
I think it's like 4%.
That's
4.
one. So I use Betterment. Betterment pays about 4.5
Okay.
or 5, one of them. Betterment.
So I'm going to try and pull up my TD Ameritrade account. I'm going to screenshot this, and so you can see. It's not about. See, you're thinking in a wrong way. You have to pick the right stocks and stay into it. Like you stay with an Apple, an Nvidia, an Eli Lilly. You stay with those companies that are going to grow over time, that have growth, because that money sitting in your account is not going to do anything for you. You put all your money into a brokerage account. Like, I'm mad because I didn't put into Nvidia a couple weeks ago, and it shot up almost $200.
Right.
So here, let me screenshot this. And
Oh no, I haven't done that class in a while. Yeah, no, sorry about that. Yeah, that's right. There you go. You ain't lying. Right.
All right, so if you see right where Apple is, Destiny, can you run back and see and make sure that that's on so they can see the computer? If you see right here where Apple is, I got in at 143, and this was no more than maybe a couple months ago. 142.98, and that's dollar cost averaging, down from me buying a couple others. It's now worth $193.40. So we're now up now up 35% on Apple, AMD 21%, Amazon 7%, Google 41%, Live Nation 27%, Microsoft 34%, QQQ, which is the NASDAQ,
yep.
That's 4.59%. Now the Roblox one was the one that I think I got in with you originally back in the day, and I haven't yet. When I first started, I haven't dollar cost averaged that one down yet, or waited until just it goes up a little bit and get rid of it. Square, I'm down. I took a hit on that one. But Tesla, look at Tesla, 61.4%, and that was in a couple months. They just shot up. What was that? Maybe about $150 within the last 2 months. So VOO is at 6%. XLE. Now XLE is an ETF. That's an energy ETF that I found. I got in at $48 when it dipped maybe about a year and a half ago, right before or right after a hurricane. The hurricane hit and we had a really bad thing. So that market dipped. So when I saw the dip, I waited for it, got in. So now it's worth $85.75, 78.34% return.
And what I was saying earlier, when I was saying I don't really buy a lot of individual stocks, I really buy ETFs, mutual funds. So the XLE,
and that's how much.
XLE.
That's how much I grew. Like, I put in maybe about $13,000 to $15,000.
I know, right? So you see the XLE, VOO, QQQ, those are all ETFs. Those are the ones I was referring to. Yeah.
Go ahead.
You don't have to.
You don't have to play. What are you playing with? Or is it sitting in your account?
I don't want that not in my account.
It is in your account. Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
I can go right now and sell off every single one of those. Get the have to add in capital gains tax depending on when I bought them in, and then there you go. I have my money back and some.
Yeah.
It's better than a savings account. Apple is the bank. They're the biggest company in the world. They are the bank.
So one thing he mentioned, he said dollar cost averaging, right? So here's how you want to do it. If you set aside a certain amount of money each week, it can be 50, 25, 100, whatever you're comfortable with. If you take that automatically each week and just reinvest it or have it transferred to an investment account and reinvest it, that's how you actually build it up over time. And now keep in mind though, this is good, but you certainly want to give yourself a long time frame. Don't always buy investments with the mindset of you're going to get this every time. You want to give yourself some time, and you want to think long term.
Yeah, and this account is all long holds. This is going to be 10 years or more, maybe really 20 to 30.
Right.
To be honest.
Is this the one you set up when I?
Yes, this is the one I set up with you. Okay. Correct. No, I started off simple. I just started off literally with maybe, I don't know, I bought Roblox, I think, and I think I bought a little bit of Live Nation and maybe an Apple, and like I literally just over time. So I literally take what I get from the church, and I literally invest it into my account every month. Yep, I put money into it every, and honestly, I took maybe about 10,000 of that from my 401k from when I was able to pull out during the pandemic with no prepayment penalties, and I took it all out. So because I wanted to control what I was doing, so I made that my thing. Oh yeah, when there's disaster, that's where the money is made. That's when the people of the other hue make the real money.
Yep.
Other hue?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Any other questions? Kalana? Yusef? I really want you to get in, bro. Like I really need you to change your mindset on that, because you're gonna end up in a worse spot than ever with that mind. And I'm just saying that as a friend. I really want you to really take heed to this and really understand that this is something that is not something that's an option. It's a necessity. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So great lead in. So next week, I guess either next we'll figure out what the date is. But pretty much, if he can't come next week, your homework for next week is to rewatch this. I know everybody was like, "Oh, why are we up here? Why are we up here?" I wanted to record it, put it on there, so if you guys have questions, look at it, rewatch it, do it over and over again, because I want you guys to write this stuff down, because I don't see anybody with a notepad really. So I want everybody to go back in, notepad it up, get it cracking. Cool, awesome, amazing, I love it. So with that, I want you guys to rewatch it again. Come back with questions so Don can answer them. Next week or the week after, whenever we decide, bring your laptops, bring your phones together, charged up, ready to go. We're going to set you up with a TD Ameritrade account. We're going to show you how it works, how to get it moving, and how to start buying. Actually, I think I think Apostle, either Apostle or Elder Bryant came first. So one of the two of you guys, your first stock is on me. So I forget what it is, but one of those two came in. So so once we get the thing up, I'll cash app you guys the money. I'll tell you guys where to get it, what to do, and we'll get moving on that. In this, we will have. I'm in a stock club. I will give you guys numbers when to get in, when to get out. It's super easy. I mean, this guy has given me those returns, literally verbatim. So I'm gonna screenshot it. Everybody that wants in, we'll get a group chat together, an email chain, something of that nature together, and I'll drop it in there every month. You'll see the numbers. You buy, if they numbers hit, you buy them. If you don't, you wait until that hits. Two index, two tech, two index, no stress. Hold for 10 years. Yes, sir. I mean, it depends on what we're doing. I mean, if we're doing right now, I mean, the market is it's high. I mean, would you, Don? That's kind of a question for you. Would you buy in right now?
I would, but I'm a dollar cost averaging in type of guy, so I wouldn't necessarily get in and put everything I have in. I would
get a little something.
Put a little something in right now, and just. That's up to you.
That's up to you.
Yeah,
I mean, like, we're literally seeing this is real. So this is real time numbers, Apostle. So you need $193.40 to get in right now. Or whatever, Live Nation, $96. You know, whatever the case may be, that the stock that you want to get in. But we can get in. You're at least, I would say, at least $300 around about. Uh-huh. No, ma'am, it does not. I mean, you know, my tithes and offerings never slacked. Never slipped or slacked. Absolutely.
No, you can just put money into an investment account, just hold it in cash until you're ready to purchase. Yeah. Right.
Right now, the question would be that I'm thinking or here in my mind is I want to partake, I want to participate, I want to figure out how to start investing, but I don't have that money right now.
Yeah.
You know, so can there be a way to save 10,
Yeah.
20,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
toward, and then be like, all right, now I have this money in
Yes.
here, now I can start doing what I want to do.
Absolutely. I mean, like I some of my dividend stocks, I didn't even look. I didn't even know I had a bunch of dividends money coming in. So I had like maybe $60, $70 sitting in there from dividends for a couple quarters. So I mean, I just literally took that, reinvested it right back into something else. Say this again. Investing is easy. Hold for 10 years. It's super easy.
Yeah, I think one of the issues that, again, us, and I always speak from the standpoint of us as black people, because we've had so many struggles, we've had challenges, we haven't really had time to really think about stuff like this. And we just don't know, right? This is why I'm more than willing to come out and help preach what I call the financial gospel, right? Because it's just as important, right? We do need that. We need to learn these things. And I think, like I said before, I think I'm really focused on younger folks, because the more we can get them in a position to start doing this younger, they'll be in a better position long term. Yep.
Yeah, if you see some, man, if Lonnie's kids went now, woo, yeah. Man, one of my friends showed me their stock before. They bought Tesla at $40. Now, they bought at Tesla $40. This was maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and what did they have? They split 3 times
A couple
already?
times, yeah. I don't even know when they are.
So, like, a couple of these,
yeah.
I'll be honest with you, a couple of those stocks, those are ones where they've split. So you have what you call a stock split, which they want to, like, your stock. Can you you can explain a little bit
so
better.
what will happen is, if a stock price gets too high, so for example, the most expensive stock right now is Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett. I think it's what, $200,000 per share. It was at one point. So he's chosen not to split it because he wants you to hold it. Most folks won't buy a stock if it's too expensive price-wise. So what companies will do is this. So you know what? Our stock is worth $200 right now. We're going to do a 2-for-1 stock split, which means we're going to take $200. It's going to now be $100. And if you had 1 share, you're going to have 2 shares. So they basically cut it in half.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's
Amazon
that's how I got as many Amazon stock shares as I did. I literally went and was like, "Oh, you guys are about to split? Cool, I'm gonna buy for you," because I looked at how much it was currently and how much they were going to split it into, and said, "Okay, that's how much it's going to be per share. I said, okay, I can work with that number, and bought in at that
Yep.
number. And then once it split, and then I went and dollar cost average and bought more.
Exactly.
And for question, does anybody have like a Robin Hood account already? And do you have something in it already? Okay, you just have it? Okay. I was gonna say, if you have anything in it, TD Ameritrade will allow you to call them up. You say, hey, I have a Robin Hood account, I have a such and such account, I would like to move all my stuff over to my TD Ameritrade account, and they will move that over for you. Last time I checked, free of charge, but they maybe give you a little fee now, but I'm not exactly sure on that.
Right. 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 Thank you. Thank you.
I thank y'all for coming out. I really do. I appreciate you. This really warms my heart. I know everybody was like, oh, why are we up here? Why are we, all this other stuff. I saw the gripes. I saw the grumbles. Thank you. Thank you. Hold on. Let me give one big shout out. Check. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Miss Mary. She did a couple things for me earlier today, and then it changed. So I appreciate you, and she bought the screen. So the screen that's right here, it was Miss Mary's help. I thank you very much, so very much, and for all your help downstairs as well as contributing to now upstairs. Oh, she was here for the food. Okay.
Right.
Absolutely. Please don't go on that trip.
Right. And I want to touch on that. Like she just said, whatever you can put, nothing is too small, right? When my 18-year-old, when he was like 3, I started out just putting $12.50 a week into an account. And then over time, I started adding more. So it went from $12.50 per week, $12.50 per week, $25, and I started adding more and more. So it doesn't matter how small you start, so long as you start and you increase it every single year or periodically.
Cool. So you guys have homework now. Your homework is to rewatch this, take notes. Also, I've added another book, Money Master the Game. You guys start reading that as well.
Thank you.
Yep.